Okay, so how old is the fort right now as of 2013?
Yeah, it'd be a little over 250 years.
Okay. How did you feel when you got the request to dig up your lawn?
Yeah, I thought this would really be exciting. I had taken an interest in that period, so that was kind of right down my alley. And when I got the letter to do it, they mentioned that Steve Warfel, who had been the state archaeologist for 30 years, would lead the dig. So I knew this was a serious effort, you know. Had they said in the letter, we just want to have some local people want to dig in your yard, I'd have probably declined, but I knew it would be a real serious effort.
Good. Okay, how did that experience go for you? Was it exciting? Did you feel it was a little invasive to your lawn?
Oh, it was extremely exciting and interesting. I knew nothing about archaeology when we started, and the few things I thought I knew were misconceptions. So I really learned a lot. And, you know, it's hard work, and I'd get tired, but then boy, you'd find, you know, a musket ball, a flint, a coin from the period, and that would really get you going again. So yeah, it was really exciting, really fun.
That's awesome. What was it like when that first person dug up the first piece?
You know, initially we were finding toys that my kids had left in the yard, and even that was exciting. But then when you're finding things from the period, and what we encountered there, I wasn't real optimistic. I was hopeful, but I wasn't real optimistic because I had lived there 30 years, and I had never found a musket ball, never found a flint, and that's because it was fill put on after the house was built, and we didn't realize that until we started to dig down. It was 18 inches of fill. So all the artifacts that we found from the period were below that. So if I was planting a tree or planting flowers, I wasn't digging down deep enough. So that was really exciting when we started to find those things, because I wasn't real confident that we would.
Okay. Can you talk about the archaeologist and how involved he was in the dig, like how he explained things when they were found and everything?
Yeah, Steve was excellent. He would work, in the winters he would work in the State Museum. He was a curator of artifacts, he'd work with collections. But every summer he'd do a field school where he'd have 10 or 12 archaeology, anthropology students that would do the work, and he would teach them. So he had that teaching element kind of built in. He had spent 3 years up at Fort Loudon, a fort from the same period, and 13 summers at the Ephrata Cloister, so he's, you know, really knowledgeable. And you know, we could find him one of these artifacts and show him, and right away he'd say, oh yeah, that was made in England. He'd give you the date. It wasn't like he had to, you know, run to the book. And he'd never throw somebody in and just say, you know, dig. Every morning we'd meet, he'd have a little discussion. If you were there the day before, you'd go back and continue, but the other people that were new that day, he'd talk to each one. Always, you know, kept you informed, let you know what you were looking for. He was just an excellent person to work with.
That's cool. How do you feel about all the items that were found in your backyard being a display case here at the Historical Center?
Yeah, I think it's great. I had a friend where I worked when I first said about this, and I told him I signed an agreement that they could have all the artifacts. He said, oh, why did you sign off the artifacts? I look at it, well, first of all, I was there 30 years and I didn't find any. We'd have never found this stuff if it wasn't for the dig. And then secondly, if I had these things at home, it would be kind of cool, but you know, a few friends and my kids would see it. But here, you know, everybody gets to see it. I volunteer here, I get to bring people through and show it. So I think this is really the place for the collection to be.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what's it like for you being a tour guide here, and what do people say when they find out that it was actually your lawn that was dug up?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. When I first started taking people through on tours, I wouldn't mention it was my yard unless people would ask. They say, you know, well, what did the people in the house think? And I say, well, I'm the person from the house. But then I noticed that people kind of got a kick out of that, that the person from the house was the person giving the tour. So now I usually tell everybody that, because they do kind of get a kick out of that, you know. And then a lot of them have questions for me about like how I felt about it, you know, how I reacted to it. So you know, I tell them now.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about selling the property, or what do you think will happen to it after you move away?
Oh, I'll never sell. I've been there 35 years, so I'm not likely to go. Yeah, as far as what happens, I don't know. Because I have 3 kids, but they're all out of the area. So yeah, I don't know about that. Well, you know.
Okay. How long did it take for all the grass to go back in your lawn?
Yeah, we've actually done 4 different digs, 4 different years. And initially, we just had test holes and trenches, and we reseeded them. So by the next year, and the grass we put in was a little nicer than my original grass. So the next year, you could tell where the circles were and where we did it. And then the next year, we did the big dig. It wasn't really long. It, you know, it came back pretty well.
What's the most number of volunteers you think you had all at one time?
No, On the big dig, we had a total of 80 volunteers, and they put in over 3,000 hours. And initially, the archaeologist, he only wanted like 10 there a day, because he had to talk to them, keep an eye on things. But we got to a point where we were afraid we wouldn't finish. So we invited, especially the people, some people were a lot better at this, they really took to it. We told them, come back anytime you can. And we'd work out things where we'd have people that would just screen. We'd have 4 people on the screens, we'd have people that would just carry. So we'd keep 10 people in the dig, but other people would help out. We had as many as 20, because we had that fear that if we wouldn't finish, you can't stop and then go back the next year without, redigging out everything, So we really wanted to complete the project that year.
Yeah. Okay. Have you ever heard of someone coming from a long way away to see this exhibit?
We have people come in from a long way to work on genealogy from California and Florida, and they do see the exhibit. But usually it's the genealogy that brings them in. But we do have had a lady from Denmark. I had some people from Australia, and it's interesting how those out-of-state people seem to appreciate this maybe more than the local people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you, actually. And